Hi everyone. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to evaluate term raised to I. Okay. For instance, how do we evaluate I to the 20 power? Is going to be equal to what number? Okay. Before we find the answer, I want you to observe a pattern. Okay. Let's say I start with I. Okay. And we know that I is equal to square root of -1, right? So I square is going to be equivalent to what number? Okay, so if I square both sides, like I said, the square is going to undo the square root. So I square is -1. Okay, now what about I cube? What is going to be equal to? Okay, so you see that I cube is going to be, I can rewrite I cube as I squared times I, right? Y. Okay, when you multiply, so I cube can be written, so when you multiply power with the same base, we add the exponent. So the exponent of this I is 1. Okay, 1 plus 2 is 3. And we know that I squared is a -1, right, times I, which is going to be equal to -I. What about I to the 4th power? Okay, so I can use, there's two ways I can do that. I can say, okay, I to the 4th power is I cubed times I, right? But I'm going to use I squared times I squared. Why? Because I know I squared is -1. So I'm going to replace I squared with -1. So the answer is +1. Okay, so let me draw something here on the side. So I is equivalent to I to the 1st power is just I. Okay, and we notice that I squared is equal to -1, and I to the I cube is equal to -I, and I to the 4th power is equal to 1, +1. Okay, so let's continue. So I to the 5th power, okay, the way I can get I to, there's many ways you can solve for I to the 5th power, but I'm going to use I to the 4th power times I. Okay, so now I to the 4th power I know is 1, right? So I have 1, right, times I, which equal to I. So now I to the 5th power is equal to I. What about I to the 6th power? So remember, so I to the 6th power, I can rewrite this as I to the 4th power times I squared, or I can use I to the 5th power times I, that's the same. So I to the 4th power I know is going to be -1. So, oops, +1. I to the 4th power is +1. Let me fix that, sorry. Okay, and I know I square now is -1. So I'm going to time -1. I can say tiny dot. Okay, so +1 times -1 is -1. Okay, so I to the 6th power is equal to -1. Okay, so now I to the 7th power is equal to what? Okay, I can use I to the 6th power times I, and we know I to the 6th power is -1 times I is going to be -I. So I to the 7th power equal to -I. And what is I to the 8th power? Okay, I can find I to the 8th power by doing I to the 4th power times I to the 4th power. Why? Multiplying the power to the same base, we add the exponent. 4 plus 4 is 8. So we're going to end up with 1 times 1, which is equal to 1. So I to the 8th power is equal to +1. Now, are you able to see the pattern that is going on here? Okay. Can you see the pattern? Okay. So remember that the I raised to power can only going to have 4 values. There's only 4 possible values that I to the 20 powers, any I raised to the higher power. Okay, and higher number here. So you can only be between the value I, -1, -I, and +1. So there is like a circle, like a repetition, a cycle going on. Every 4th time, you end up with the 1 value. Okay. So now if I ask you, okay, what is I to the 9th power? Okay, we know that is 1, so the next one will be I. So I to the 9th power will be I, if you evaluate it. Okay, so that's the logic you're going to use, right? To find, let's find then, what is I to the 20 power? Like I asked you to do it, and at the beginning, you want to evaluate I to the 20 powers. So you're going to use the pattern that you observe, right? And I'm going to use it on the that every fourth time the I value is 1. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is, so I can rewrite 20 I to the 20 powers as I. So I'm trying to, I know what I to the 4th power is 1. So but what number am I going to multiply 4 by? So I get 20. It's going to be 5. Okay. So then I end up with I to the 4th power is 1, and then raised to the 5th power is going to be 1. So I to the 20 power is equal to 1. That's it. Okay. So now what about I to the 33 power? Okay, for me, I like to use I to the 4th power because it's 1. So I'm going to break it down in terms of the power of 4. So I to the 4th power. Okay, so what number can I multiply 4 by? Okay, so I can use 8 here because 4 times 8 is 32. So I'm missing 1, so times I. So I to the 4th power, everything here simplified to 1 whole, right? So I have 1 times I, so it's going to be equivalent to I. So I to the 33 power is equal to I. That's it. Okay. So for me, in order to evaluate I to the higher number, to high power, all I have to do, I'm trying to find like rewrite the power in terms of 4. Find the number that I multiply by 4 by giving a number close to the power. And here the example was 8. Okay. Okay. So pause the video and evaluate. Try to evaluate I to the 45 power. What is I to the 45 power equal to? Okay. So I found that I to the 45 power is evaluate to be I. Okay. Okay. So now try to evaluate, let's say 2I to the 5th power. Okay. Okay, so 2I to the 5th power, we evaluated to be 32I, right? So 2I to the 5th power means you want to do you want to distribute the exponent of 5 to the 2. So 2 to the 5th power is 32, and distribute the exponent of I to the exponent of 5 to the I. So you add I to the 5th power, that can be written as I to the 4th power times I, and I end up with, you know what I to the 4th power is 1. So the final answer is going to be 32 times I. Okay, so thank you for watching my video. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.